Janet tossed and turned in her hotel bed, staring at the ceiling as frustration gnawed at her. It was nearly midnight, but sleep refused to come. Her mind kept replaying the events of the day. Irvin leaving Jeju just to chase after Skylar.
Why?
She couldn't understand it. What was it about Skylar that made Irvin so devoted? What did she have that Janet didn't? Janet clenched her fists against the sheets, exhaling sharply.
What can I do to make Irvin look at me the way he looks at her?
The thought made her stomach twist. It wasn't fair. She had known him for so long, been by his side, yet no matter what she did, his heart always seemed to belong to Skylar. Just as she was drowning in her thoughts, the sharp chime of her hotel doorbell cut through the silence. She groaned, irritated at the late-night disturbance. Pushing herself out of bed, she dragged her feet toward the door, expecting to see Peter or maybe a hotel staff member. But when she swung it open, her breath caught in her throat. Irvin stood there. She blinked, momentarily stunned. His expression was unreadable, his hands shoved into his jacket pockets. His presence alone sent a jolt of emotions through her. Hope, confusion, frustration.
Irvin? What are you doing here? I thought you went back to Seoul.
Irvin locked eyes with Janet for a moment before finally speaking, his voice laced with exhaustion.
Skylar is mad at me. She won't even talk to me.
She swallowed hard, stepping aside to let him in. For a brief moment, she couldn't believe it. Was this finally happening? Was Irvin actually turning to her for comfort? He walked in slowly, running a hand through his hair before slumping onto the couch. Janet shut the door, taking a cautious step forward.
What happened?
Irvin sighed, his shoulders slumping further.
I think back to what you said to me earlier. Maybe you were right all along.
He lifted his gaze to hers, letting his expression carry just enough doubt, just enough regret.
Maybe I do deserve to breathe a little.
Janet's chest tightened with excitement. Was he finally seeing things her way? She carefully masked her satisfaction, walking over to sit beside him.
I told you.
She placed a gentle hand on his knee.
Skylar never really understood what you needed, did she?
Irvin exhaled, glancing down at her hand but not moving it away.
I don't know anymore. I really need someone to talk to right now.
Janet's lips curled slightly as she leaned in closer.
You don't have to go through this alone, Irvin. I've always been here for you.
He let the silence stretch between them before turning to her, his expression torn.
Then be honest with me, Janet. Back in college, did you know, all along, that Skylar wasn't good for me? Was that why you sent her those messages?
Janet stiffened.
Messages? Did Skylar showed him all the messages back in college?
She swallowed.
Irvin,
I just want the truth.
He cut in, placing his hand over hers.
If I was too blind to see it before, then help me understand now. Janet, you really care about me, don't you?
Janet froze. The warmth of his hand and the weight of his words were everything she had wanted. For years, she'd waited for this moment, and now it was here, teetering on the edge of something real. Now it's her chance to make Skylar the bad woman. The lie was right there, ready to fall from her lips. But instead, something else came out.
She's not like us,
she said, her voice sharpening with venom.
You were always going to outgrow her. The way she hides, the way she breaks down over everything, she's weak. You think that's love? That's dependency, Irvin. It's pathetic. Skylar was never right for you, Irvin. She never deserved you the way I...
She caught herself too late. Irvin's brow furrowed slightly, but Janet pressed on, unable to stop now.
I've stood by you, haven't I? Every step of the way. I've worked with you. I've supported you. I know you. You and I. We make sense. Skylar, she's not it. She never was. And you know it.
His hand twitched slightly under hers, but Janet leaned in closer.
She's not even that pretty. She's barely holding herself together. And the truth is, no one wants someone who's broken all the time. You don't build a future with someone like her. You pity her. And pity fades, Irvin. You know it does.
She paused, letting the silence sink in, waiting for him to agree. But Irvin didn't move. His expression had darkened, unreadable. And for the first time, Janet felt something unfamiliar rise in her chest. Dread. Janet's fingers twitched slightly against his knee before she quickly pulled her hand away.
Irvin,
Tell me.
He cut in, his voice was firm. Janet's breath hitched as she met his gaze.
I'm the one who's always been here for you. Skylar was never what you needed. She just kept you tethered to a life that drained you. I only wanted you to see what's been right in front of you this whole time. Me.
Irvin lifted his head then, his eyes sharp, too sharp. Janet's stomach dropped. It was in that moment she saw it, the slight shift in his expression, the way his body language changed. The sorrow that had laced his voice just moments ago was gone. The hesitation, the doubt, all of it had been an act. His face not just filled with disappointment, but a hint of victory. He had her. Her breath hitched.
You...
Irvin leaned back, shaking his head.
You played your hand, Janet. And now I know everything I needed to.
Panic flared in her chest.
Irvin, wait!
No.
He stood up, looking down at her with something that wasn't quite anger, just cold, final clarity.
I came here to give you a chance to be honest. And you were.
He scoffed, shaking his head again.
You really thought you could twist things to make me turn against Skylar?
Janet scrambled to her feet.
I was only trying to...
To manipulate me?
He shot back.
To sabotage my relationship?
Janet's mouth opened, but no words came out. Irvin let out a deep sigh, his disappointment cutting deeper than anger.
You know what's crazy?
He let out a scoff, the sound laced with self-directed frustration.
I spent so much time thinking Skylar was the problem. I let myself believe she was paranoid, that she was the one ruining things. And I pushed her away because of it.
He turned to the door, gripping the handle tightly before casting one last look at Janet, his gaze cold.
But the real mistake was not taking my time to really see you for who you are. And you know why?
His eyes filled with nothing but indifference.
Because I never cared enough to. And no matter how hard you try, you will never be her. You will never even come close.
Janet stepped forward in desperation.
Irvin, please, I really do.
But he was already walking out. As the door clicked shut behind him, the weight of her own mistakes came crashing down on her. And for the first time, Janet realized she hadn't just lost the game, she had lost him. Irvin had planned to go straight back to Skylar, to tell her everything, to make things right. But as much as he wanted to see her, impatience clawed at his chest. Frustration twisted inside him as he strode toward his car, his thoughts tangled with everything he had learned, everything Skylar had gone through. He wasn't going to let this silence between them stretch any longer. Without thinking, he pulled out his phone and dialed her number. The line rang twice before she answered.
Skylar? Sky, we need to talk.
There was a pause, and then she responded in a flat, emotionless tone. Now's not the time, Irvin. His grip on the phone tightened.
Oh, are you busy?
Skylar sighed, the sound heavy, exhausted. I'm always busy. He hesitated.
So, when will you be free to talk?
I don't know. His fingers curled into a fist at his side.
Skylar, come on. You can't keep dodging me forever.
I'm not dodging you.
You are. And I don't get why.
Silence stretched between them before she abruptly changed the subject. Are you done with the film? The question threw him off. He stopped beside his car, his brows furrowing.
What?
The film, Irvin, she repeated, her tone measured. How's everything going over there? Irvin exhaled, a quiet heaviness in his chest. She didn't even know he'd been back in Seoul, or that he'd returned to Jeju, and now he was already planning to leave again.
Yeah. It's good.
A beat of silence. Then, her voice came quieter, almost unreadable. You're leaving, aren't you? His pulse kicked up. You're not staying till the end. You're heading back? He clenched his jaw. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was ready to come back now, that fixing things with her mattered more than anything. But something about the way she said it, so certain, so resigned, made his chest ache.
No. I'm going to wrap things up here.
He found himself saying.
I'll see you in a week, okay?
Another silence. Then a quiet hum of acknowledgement. Good. You should. Irvin frowned.
That's all you have to say?
A breath, almost too soft to catch. What do you want me to say? Her voice was tired, distant. Just finish what you started. The call ended before he could say another word. Irvin stared at his phone, his chest tightening. How come it felt like she was slipping further away? The filming pressed on, each day blurring into the next. Irvin threw himself into the work, determined to see it through with no regrets. He pushed for perfection, making sure every detail was right, but no matter how hard he tried to focus, his mind kept drifting back to Skylar. Her voice, her absence, the weight of everything left unsaid. On set, Janet delivered her lines flawlessly, slipping into character as if nothing had changed. But between takes, her eyes kept flicking toward Irvin. He wasn't paying attention to her, like always. He was distant, lost in thought, and Janet knew exactly where his mind had gone, to Skylar. But more than that, the realization of what he now knew about her, the truth he finally saw, made her stomach twist with something unfamiliar. Not fear, not regret, but humiliation. He knew. And now, every glance he spared her, every moment of silence between them, felt like judgment. Like he was looking at her and finally seeing her for who she really was. The weight of it pressed down on her, making it impossible to ignore the way her cheeks burned, the way her pulse stuttered every time he turned in her direction. For the first time, Janet felt exposed, and it was unbearable. The return to Seoul was a blur. After weeks of intense filming in Jeju, the crew barely had time to breathe before diving into the next phase. Equipment was unpacked, schedules were adjusted, and meetings filled the hours. Conversations blended, exhaustion weighing heavily on everyone, but Irvin hardly noticed. His mind was elsewhere, tangled in the thoughts he had been pushing away since he stepped off the plane. Skylar. Even as he worked, his phone felt heavier in his pocket, her silence stretching painfully between them. He hadn't reached out. Not yet. Maybe it was cowardice. Perhaps it was uncertainty. All he knew was that the longer he waited, the more restless he became. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline, the crew started winding down, leaving one by one. Irvin got into his car and made his way to Skylar. No more avoiding. Skylar had just wrapped up a grueling meeting with her deadline team when the idea of dinner came up. A spontaneous celebration felt well-deserved. They had crushed every single deadline, and for once, there was a reason to breathe. As they gathered their things, Ethan marked her final accomplishment for the day with a triumphant grin.
Your word count for today is 4,256, officially exceeding your daily target. Nice job, Miss Katz.
Wow! Sally and Yin Yin, her deadline team, squealed in unison, exchanging excited glances. Skylar scoffed, shooting them a playful glare. Oh, zip it! I've written way more than that before, and none of you ever congratulated me like this. Why the sudden enthusiasm? Yin Yin grinned.
Because today, we actually get to celebrate instead of stressing over the next deadline.
Sally nudged Skylar's arm.
And because you deserve it, obviously.
Before Skylar could protest further, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Irvin. Hesitating for only a moment, she answered. Irvin?
Hey, are you busy?
She glanced at the others who were already heading toward the door. Sort of. We're going out for dinner. Why? There was a brief pause. Then,
Can I join?
Skylar blinked. Of all the things she expected, that wasn't one of them. You want to come to dinner with us?
If that's okay.
She considered it for a second. All right. Meet us at Indigo Bistro in 20.
Got it.
As she hung up, Ethan, Sally, and Yin Yin exchanged a knowing look.
Oh,
Ethan teased.
did Mr. Director just invite himself to dinner?
Skylar rolled her eyes, but couldn't fight the tiny smile pulling at her lips. Shut up and walk. The restaurant buzzed with warmth and laughter as Skylar, Ethan, Sally, and Yin Yin settled in. For the first time in a while, Skylar felt at ease. Then, the door opened. Irvin walked in, scanning the room until his eyes locked onto hers. He took a breath, just for a moment, before going over. He reached their table as Sally and Yin Yin, who had never met Irvin, exchanged glances before turning to him with curiosity. Sally perked up.
You must be the famous Irvin we keep hearing about.
Yin Yin smirked.
Mostly from Ethan.
She added teasingly. Irvin raised an eyebrow at Ethan, while Skylar shot him a surprised look. Since when did Ethan take an interest in talking about Irvin? Noticing their stares, Ethan simply shrugged.
I may have mentioned a thing or two.
Irvin nodded politely as Ethan quickly introduced Sally and Yin Yin.
Nice to meet you both. It's nice to know you've been a great help to Sky.
Skylar pressed her lips together, fingers tightening around her drink. When Irvin pulled out the chair at the opposite end of the table, directly across from her, her chest tightened. There was no avoiding him now. As he sat down, Sally leaned in.
So, how was Jeju?
Irvin glanced at her briefly before his gaze flickered back to Skylar.
Jeju was beautiful. The filming went smoothly, the team worked hard, and everything came together in the end.
That's great to hear.
Yin Yin said.
But
Irvin continued, his voice shifting.
we couldn't wait any longer to come back.
The words hung in the air momentarily, heavier than they should have been. Skylar's fingers tensed slightly around her glass, but she didn't look away. Really? The film was that unbearable? Irvin gave a small chuckle, shaking his head.
No, the film was fine.
His gaze steady on hers.
But I had something more important waiting for me here.
Skylar's breath caught, heat rushing to her cheeks before she could stop it. She quickly dropped her gaze to her drink, stirring the ice with her straw, desperate to focus on anything but him. Irvin didn't miss it. A slow smile tugged at his lips as he watched her reaction.
Adorable.
Sally and Yin Yin exchanged glances, picking up on the tension.
Wow,
Sally mused, leaning in.
that's some serious dedication. Must be something or someone really special waiting for you.
Irvin didn't break eye contact with Skylar.
Yeah, something irreplaceable.
Skylar's fingers tightened around her glass. You're being dramatic, she muttered, still refusing to meet his eyes. Irvin tilted his head, amusement dancing in his expression.
Am I?
The warmth in his voice sent her heart into a frenzy. How did he do this? How did he turn a simple conversation into something that made the air feel too thick and impossible to breathe properly? Ethan, watching with barely concealed amusement, smirked.
All right, lovebirds. Let's eat before this becomes unbearable for the rest of us.
Skylar shot him a sharp glare, but it only made Irvin chuckle, and as the night carried on, his eyes never once strayed from her.